In January 1959, 23-year-old engineering student Igor Dyatlov led a team of 8 young men and women into the remote northern Ural Mountains. They were in the prime of their lives, physically strong and completely at home in the freezing wilderness. Every member of the expedition was a Grade 2 mountaineer. They were actively training for their Grade 3 certification, the highest level of mountaineering competence recognized by the Soviet Union. They knew how to navigate steep, icy inclines, manage their body heat, and survive in some of the harshest winter conditions on Earth. Their route took them deep into a desolate, wind-battered slope. To the local indigenous Matsi people, this ridge was known as Holat Syakhl, which translates to Dead Mountain. Dyatlov promised to send a telegram when the team returned to civilization by February 12th. When a week passed in total silence, the Soviet military mobilized. Police and local volunteers fanned out across the mountain range, launching a massive grid search. Because this group was so rigorously trained to survive the cold, the scene searchers eventually found made absolutely no sense. The meticulous logic of seasoned survivalists had been replaced by total, panicked chaos. The first thing rescuers found was the team's heavy canvas tent, half buried in the snow. Structurally, it was intact from the outside, but investigators quickly realized it had been desperately slashed open from the inside. Footprints led downhill, away from the campsite, straight into a -30-degree blizzard. The tracks showed that these highly trained survivalists had fled into the frozen dark without boots, heavy coats, or basic gear. Underneath a large cedar tree at the edge of a forest, a mile and a half away, search teams found the first bodies. The hikers had frantically tried to build a small fire to stay warm, but hypothermia had quickly claimed them. It took months for the spring thaw to reveal the final bodies buried deep in a nearby rocky ravine. Their autopsy reports detailed impossible physics. Several hikers had crushed chests and shattered skulls, injuries mimicking the massive kinetic impact of a high-speed car crash, yet their skin showed no external bruising or scrapes. Then the forensic reports pushed the case entirely out of the realm of logic. 2 of the victims in the ravine were missing their eyes, 1 was missing her tongue, and several pieces of their clothing tested positive for unexplained traces of radiation. Overwhelmed by conflicting evidence, the Soviet government abruptly classified the files and closed the case in May 1959. Their official conclusion stated only that the hikers had died from an unknown elemental force. That vague verdict created a permanent information vacuum, allowing a modern myth to take root. Initial police reports pointed the finger at the local indigenous Mansi people, suspecting they had ambushed the camp to protect their territory. That theory collapsed almost immediately. The untouched snow around the tent showed no foreign footprints, and none of the victims exhibited any signs of hand-to-hand combat or an external struggle. During the height of the Cold War, the most popular explanation was military cover-up. Conspiracy theorists argued the hikers had accidentally wandered into a secret weapons test, or perhaps the blast radius of a fuel-air parachute mine. While secret weapons and military cover-ups fit perfectly into the paranoia of the 1950s, they fail the forensic test. An explosive shockwave cannot explain why the blunt force trauma was highly localized to specific victims, nor does it explain the specific unidirectional escape tracks leading away from the tent. The noise surrounding the case remained unchallenged until 2021, when researchers Johann Gaum and Alexander Puzrin applied modern topographical computer simulations to the specific slope of Dead Mountain. This animated cross-section shows exactly how the structural failure began. To protect themselves from the bitter wind, the hikers dug into the snowpack and carved their tent directly into the slope. By doing so, they unknowingly cut away the base support holding up the layers of snow above them. Over the next several hours, the mountain was hit by severe katabatic winds, intense downward-flowing air currents that sweep down the slope. These winds acted like a conveyor belt, depositing massive, dense amounts of heavy new snow directly onto the ridge directly above the undermined cavity. Eventually, the environmental load became too great. A rigid, heavy block of snow snapped under its own weight and plummeted directly onto the top of the sleeping tent. This specific event perfectly matches the autopsy anomalies. A compact block of dense snow dropping in a confined space acts like a heavy projectile. It crushes ribs and shatters skulls internally upon impact, but because the surface of the snow is smooth, it doesn't scrape or bruise the skin. Pinned in total darkness, in immense pain, the hikers made a rational but fatal calculation. Fearing a secondary avalanche wave was about to hit, they slashed their way out of the canvas and retreated downhill toward the tree line to find immediate shelter. The severe injuries discovered in the ravine were the result of a secondary environmental trap. Blinded by the blizzard and freezing to death, the heavily injured survivors fell through a natural snow bridge, dropping several meters into a rocky creek bed below. As for the terrifying missing soft tissues, they were the natural consequence of post-mortem decomposition in running water, combined with normal scavenging by local wildlife as the bodies sat exposed to the elements for 2 months. When we strip away the paranormal noise and the Cold War paranoia, the mystery of Dyatlov Pass resolves into a highly specific and devastating chain reaction of physics and extreme weather. We have a psychological need to invent monsters and secret government plots because it gives a tragedy structure. Blaming an elaborate conspiracy is often easier than accepting the chaotic, uncontrollable reality of a natural disaster. The 9 hikers on Dead Mountain did nearly everything right. They followed their rigorous training, pitched their camp strategically to avoid the wind, and reacted logically when disaster struck. They were simply caught in a microscopic geological trap they could not see in the dark. Nature is entirely indifferent to human skill. Sometimes, no matter your expertise, no matter your preparation, the mountain still wins.